The airport was unusually quiet that morning, until a Marine in full ceremonial uniform stepped through the sliding doors, carrying a folded piece of paper and a heart heavier than the casket he was escorting. He walked with the dignity of a man fulfilling the highest duty. But within moments, airport staff stopped him, demanded answers, and challenged his right to proceed. No one expected what would happen next, because the truth he carried would bring an entire airport to silence and change the lives of everyone who witnessed it. Sergeant Mark Lawson had escorted fallen soldiers many times before, but today felt different. Today, he wasn't just walking beside a casket, he was walking beside the memory of a man he once called his brother. Private First Class Daniel Reeves wasn't related to him by blood, but they had shared sandstorms, meals, and the kind of promises only soldiers understand. Mark was the closest thing Daniel had to family in the military, and when tragedy struck overseas, Mark volunteered instantly to bring him home. As he entered the airport, all eyes shifted toward him, not because of the uniform, but because of the solemn weight he carried in every step. The casket wrapped in the American flag was being unloaded behind him, and he was responsible for ensuring it reached Daniel's hometown with honor. He reached the security checkpoint, ready to move through quietly, when a voice called out sharply, "Sir, stop. You can't go through here with that authorization." A staff supervisor approached, holding up a hand, confusion crossing her face. She wasn't rude, just overwhelmed. It wasn't every day that a Tom Guard-trained Marine walked through her terminal with special escort orders. Mark handed her the folded document, the one he'd kept pressed in his hand since dawn. The supervisor skimmed it, squinting at the military seals, protocol instructions, and emergency authorizations. "I'm sorry, Sergeant," she said, "but I need to verify this. Please wait." Her voice carried across the checkpoint, drawing attention from passengers who began whispering, staring, wondering why a Marine escort was being delayed. Mark stood still, rigid, silent. Inside, however, his heart raced, not for himself, but because Daniel's family was already waiting at the connecting airport. Any delay felt like he was failing his final promise. Minutes stretched, becoming a test of patience and dignity. A second staff member joined, then a third. Confusion turned into tension. "Sir, we can't let military escorts pass without verification. It's policy." And Mark answered softly but firmly, "Ma'am, I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking you to let me keep my word. I vowed I'd bring him home." His voice cracked. Just once, but enough that a woman nearby covered her mouth, feeling the emotion behind those words, and then the moment broke open. A man stepped forward from the line, an elderly gentleman with trembling hands, wearing a hat embroidered with faded military patches. He looked at Mark with the eyes of someone who had lived long enough to understand sacrifice. "Let the Marine do his duty," the old veteran said quietly. "He's carrying someone's son home." The terminal went silent. Airport staff stared at one another unsure, torn between rules and humanity. Mark held his breath, the entire terminal holding theirs with him. That was when everything changed. Just as the staff prepared to make another call, the terminal doors opened, and a senior airport operations manager approached, hurrying with concern on his face. "What's going on here?" he demanded. The supervisor explained the situation quickly. The manager took the paperwork from her, scanned the military authorization, and his expression shifted instantly. He straightened, swallowed, then turned toward Mark with respect written across his face. "Sergeant Lawson, I'm sorry for this delay. You are fully cleared. In fact," he stepped aside and raised his hand, "you will not pass through security like everyone else. You will be escorted with full honor." He radioed security. He radioed ground crew. He radioed supervisors. Within minutes, every station hallway, gate, and intersection along Mark's path was cleared. Passengers stepped back, watching silently. Some put their hands over their hearts. Some saluted. Some simply cried. The old veteran from the line stood tall, hands shaking as he rendered a final salute. Mark walked forward, emotion pressing against his rigid posture. As he passed, people whispered blessings, gratitude, memories of their own lost loved ones. And then, something no one expected happened. A group of airline staff and passengers spontaneously formed a long path, standing shoulder to shoulder, heads bowed. The terminal lights seemed dimmer, the air heavier, as Mark walked through the corridor of respect. The flag-draped casket followed, carried with the help of ground crew who volunteered themselves without hesitation. When Mark reached the boarding gate, the pilot stepped out. "Sergeant," the captain said, voice steady but emotional, "your soldier will be the first on board, and I will personally inform passengers that this flight carries a hero." A tear escaped Mark's eye, his first that day. Before boarding, the airport manager gently placed a hand on Mark's shoulder. "You didn't just bring a soldier home," he said. "You reminded this entire airport what honor looks like." Mark nodded, unable to speak. As the aircraft doors closed and the engines hummed, Mark took his seat beside the casket, whispering softly, "I told you I'd get you home, brother." And far below, in the terminal still holding on to the moment, dozens of strangers stood together. Quiet, changed, moved. Because they hadn't just witnessed protocol. They hadn't just seen a uniform. They had witnessed love, loyalty, and the unbreakable promise between soldiers: when rules meet humanity, compassion must lead. When sacrifice enters a room, we do not look away. And when someone gives their life for others, the world must stop, even just for a moment, to honor them.